Welcome all to this very special event at the University of Redlands. We're thrilled to gather this evening with students, faculty, staff, trustees, and with special friends and family members, and with many new visitors, including untold thousands who are viewing this live on the web. In order to introduce His Holiness, the 17th Gyalwang Karmapa, Ogyen Trinley Dorje, as candidate for an honorary degree, the first ever such degree to be conferred upon His Holiness. We begin our ceremony and celebration with a performance of a song composed by His Holiness and entitled Aspirations for the World, today performed by the University of Redlands Chapel Singers. It is my pleasure to introduce the Gyalwang Karmapa Ogyen Trinley Dorje as candidate for honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters. Your Holiness, will you please join me at the podium? To assist in the recognition, I call on our Virginia Hunsaker Distinguished Teaching Chair and Professor of Religious Studies, Dr. Karen Darris, to present a proclamation highlighting the Karmapa's accomplishments.
The University of Redlands, with great respect and deep appreciation, commends and honors His Holiness, the 17th Gyalwang Karmapa, Ogyen Trinley Dorje, this 24th day of March, 2015. We commend His Holiness for his leadership in working with his generational peers to transform our world through education dedicated to broadening awareness of suffering in the world and to informing compassionate action to alleviate it. We celebrate the Karmapa's deep commitment to illuminating and building upon the interconnections that unite the world across differences of language, culture, religion, or worldview. We honor the Karmapa's special relationship with our students, which began at his home in India, where he most generously guided them in deeply meaningful cross-cultural conversations. His Holiness now guides liberal arts institutions towards a model of global learning that encourages students to embrace their responsibilities as global citizens as opportunities for forming global friendships. Serving as an inspiration to millions around the world in their daily lives, His Holiness's educational efforts have led to meaningful progress towards environmental sustainability, gender equality, and humane treatment of animals in the communities of his Buddhist faith, inspiring others around the globe to work for meaningful change in their own communities. Through the example of his remarkable life, the Karmapa shows us the endless possibilities arising from courage, service to others, and unwavering aspiration to achieve the conditions for freedom and happiness for all beings in the world. For this and more, the University of Redlands and its Board of Trustees convey our deepest respect and gratitude for His Holiness's exemplary life and work as we confer upon him the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters.
At this time, I have asked the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Kathy Ogren, on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the University of Redlands, to present you the doctoral hood, symbolizing the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters and recognizing your outstanding accomplishments. Gyalwang Karmapa, Ogyen Trinley Dorje, by the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I now confer upon you the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, for which you have been recommended, with all rights, privileges, and responsibilities pertaining thereto. As evidence of the degree, I present to you this diploma of the University of Redlands, signed by the chair of the board and embossed with the seal of the great University of Redlands. Thank you. The University of Redlands community presented something else to His Holiness today, a peace tree planted in his honor. The tree marks the entrance to the Memorial Chapel labyrinth, in which one walks to a path of contemplative state and enlightenment. And it is nearby our peace pole, also planted to spread the spirit of peace on our campus and beyond. We chose the Karmapa's peace tree, the species Laurus nobilis, the laurel or sweet bay tree, because it is filled with history and symbolism, extending back to ancient Greek and Roman times, relating to learning, education, and achievement. We planted the Karmapa's peace tree to symbolize our shared wish for peace for all humanity. We planted this peace tree, an important ritual and symbol of the ancient West, to honor and symbolize our friendship with the East. May it ever flourish. Now, University of Redlands alumni who studied with His Holiness in India, just 4 among the 20 who have returned to campus this week for this special reunion with their teacher. They will read selections from The Heart is Noble, Changing the World from the Inside Out.
Until now, we have been sharing this earth without recognizing that fact. Now, we can also share our hopes for our common home. We can have common aspirations for ourselves and for each other. We do not need anything more complicated than that. Sharing aspirations and experiences can bring us together on a basic human level. Just that can bring us happiness.
The challenges facing our generation and those to come are vast, but if you begin to feel weighed down by them, please remember that we will be facing them all together.
Small acts can be huge. Our very existence on this planet depends on small acts. Countless small acts have joined together to sustain our life, and our life takes place in a context of complete and constant interconnectedness. This means that everything we do can have a huge impact on others.
Compassion that is sustainable must last beyond momentary bursts of inspiration. Once we are committed to carrying true compassion into our life, we can embrace it in even the smallest acts. We can color our whole life with kindness, transforming our everyday activities and suffusing our everyday ways of being with human warmth. This can happen. Our life can be translated into love.
Do not need to tell you, we are honored to invite His Holiness the Karmapa to offer his address.
Thank you. The University of Redlands, the Quran President Dana Singhi, and Gagan number Soda, Lulu, and Samlolia, Doran Denson, but Samlolia, Subdishai.
I'd like to offer my greetings and sentiments of welcome to all of you tonight at the University of Redlands here. Particularly, I would like to thank the president of the university as well as all of the teachers and students here for having me, and welcome to all of you.
Actually, I have noted that also disappeared somewhere. Okay. That name, 아주 가출해야지. 아주 university다 믹스하기 가출해 devil 여비치 않은 아주 여기 루주 팅니지 비게 야갈이야 폐제 아니 가출해 아주 냠도 둘린차 충분해 이주산에 wonderful experience 아주 냠도지 믹스하기 가출하다지 다 가출해 냠도 파사 상부시다 충성 지단 제비는 녜게 마 관소리야 된 예심주를 시합을 조디 하는 아주 냠도지 가수를 계속 심주 파 sharing을 제례를 제제 뒤에도는 알아이네야 럽정시다 충분히 다 럽정을 라브디 아주 편주지 가수를 자식을 제바 선한자도 초변 제바 상변 제바디 띵사버지 충배 선화로도 충되게 아들 인주산 다리가 대야 용백거리야 아니 가슈디 아주 냠돈 좀비기 루주 망고지 미세 청한데 펩시 냠돈 좀하고 업중부디 나 가보시다 총수야이.
I have a very special connection with this university because on 2 occasions, a group of students from the University of Redlands visited me in India, and I had a wonderful experience with them, discussing many topics together. This was really planted some excellent seeds in me. And it wasn't just a case of me teaching them or speaking to them about something. The main thing that happened is that we got together and shared our thoughts on various topics. And I feel that these discussions were profound in this way, but even more important than that to me was the deep feeling and experience of friendship that occurred during these exchanges. So therefore, my favorite among all of the reasons that brought me here to the University of Redlands is the opportunity to be together once again with these friends of mine.
Yeah. And 다나 지들이 이 가상마 가수들 예 시합이 가서 가상마 유니버시티 가서
You Stanford?
스탠포드 시카지 침브레 뭐 야침부 샤베 다나 신기 데 가수에 야침부 안더 베지 가수에 년라 침부 인자도 가수에 heaviness 뭐라도 좋아를 중소 렌딩 아주 유니버시티 디나를 용한체 미세가 더 디나를 미세가 더 가수에 relaxing 더 지당 안다는 신기 지 데즈 가수에 힘을 내베 전하는 거지 직전에 디디 아주 뭐 랍든 디난기 안에 루루망부지 아주 데버를 사무차비 인상 텔레덴시 디 유니버시티 딜레 레베 거리냐 지 힘을 내베 전하는 거지 뭐도스 레인주산 디주스데네 다리디 유니버시티 홀 가수에 지 저리남 내레남들이야 시라카바 총수 도체나 샤인스
Just a few days ago, I made a visit to Stanford University, which, as you know, is a very large, famous, and important institution. And because of that, there was a feeling of heaviness within me about being there. It was kind of a serious thing. But coming here today and yesterday, it's been much more relaxing for me. There's been a sense of spaciousness in my coming here. And that's because of the profound and very positive connection I have with friends at the University of Redlands. So rather than feeling a sense of seriousness and heaviness, I actually have the feeling of coming home. And so I'd like to thank you for providing this opportunity to me, and I would especially like to thank everyone who has participated in hosting me and welcoming me here.
가수에다 두주디 가르쳐도 랑 알라고도다 이게 주주지의 기빈도
올라서
다드네 가수에 당에 섬주 망고지 가수에 지 세전 더디 하드스 노블 사르다들이 대비 맞지 도스 중요하래 레인주산에 데두산 급지두산 조다 정예게 전화셔야 알지 가라서나 the spiritual leaders 말을 다들이 미자 아니 미망고지 도제치가 알아 미망고지 도제치 좀린 가서가 아니 미망고지 도제치가 알아 가시 출로라 이제야 가시 이제면야 가시 지 출로 담는데 미망고지 도제 근데 저도 냠도 진짜버리 니주 망고지 강에 지 니주 망고지다 강에 망고지 편주 시야 고급 용되게 알아 근데 인주산에 디균센데네 아니 걸리지 지 가르에 점링기 점블링이 내당당 다는 점블링이야 소소기 더주염 도시에디 안 걸리지 가서 구주기 망보지 투제 체버들 된체 빌드업 somewhere 다 din지 자 충분해 드린 디규제 된 대단 제체 알아 섬주시에 샵지 드리죠
Lasso. Kare build up 중성.
디다 더주디
Lasso.
view for world
Lasso. Knowledge double. There's been a book published of some of my thoughts and views called The Heart is Noble. And in connection with that, I'm seen as a spiritual leader. And from that perspective, I have the opportunity to meet with many different people. Some of them have faith in various religions or spiritual traditions. Some of them are non-believers. But I have a chance to meet with many different people of many different backgrounds and perspectives. And we've had opportunities to share our views with each other on various problems that the world is facing. And I think that through all of these exchanges, that I have built up a little bit more of a refined view about what is going on in the world.
Adrian Dusane, Digi Gashue, the Tamsi interdependent, interconnected, somewhere. That in Digan Dushedi, that the philosophy in the Vijidan, Dana Singi Digi Gashue, that Pa Senior, Gashue Gunzer, which viewpoint, which woman, that the value somewhere, value in Vijidan, interdependent value. They are so Mizina Lolea. Tijin Tandi, Kandicheche, the Mizina Lola Levichitan, Mizina Lolia, and a Kashwe, that the Sona Levich somewhere, in emotional level somewhere, that the Jekwane Levichadi, Kachambuch Tongus.
And what I think I have come to cultivate further is the understanding of the importance of the reality of interdependence and interconnectedness, not just as a philosophy or not just as an intellectual viewpoint alone, but really the value of understanding this reality in a way that is applicable to daily life and a way that can be appreciated in daily life on a practical level as well as on an emotional level.
That decades of Tambu go to the Sane, Aranji Swar Cheshedi, Mazudam Benaji, natural environment. That he never did one, Mazu Shavimina. And the Missing around Missa Sonar on the yard, the girl, Caresana, Aran Chundu, Salon Chesses and Rando, Gesas Hasarudi, and a Purgi, Sharjo, the Lumba Kugon, which the means. And Delia Salon Chudusan, so she got Ranjung Kuda, Tanya, but she deagita, Ranjung Geta, Mayum Summer, T. Bangla by Niar, the Nichiko to Shuminza, T. Junzen Dene, T. Tony Shavina, Maran Gigeta, Sona Cherchu, the Indusan, T. Tony Shu.
That's all. In this context, one of the issues that's very dear to my heart is the natural environment. And the reason I like to speak about the natural environment so much is because I feel a special connection with it, particularly due to the fact that I was born in a very isolated village in eastern Tibet that was surrounded by great beauty of the natural environment. Due to this, I feel that I really had an opportunity to sleep in the lap of the Mother Earth. And I really think that this instilled in me a natural appreciation for the environment. That's why I like to explore the issue of the environment so much.
제상 아주다 친력이 지den스나 장도 야나 ren중 쿠데다 제가 차단을 된 아주 배발이야 다 변업지 샤요 다디 친력이 지된 난 주기 심제서 다 디기 아주를 picture 좀 가서 다디 ngazudan nyugi jidian ranjung kuyu den deba kanje yemeti ngazula jik imagination sanata to picture ndabji yawas tege or something to karasana nyugi jidian de nyöndabji sustaining us and dana shin be ngazu ji holding chedebji support dana shingi ji karshure protecting chedebji 다 디나는 예배 주의 semjen sedu sane 아주 semjen 되게디 주세의 nurture 자자 친녀의 지den디 아주 nurturing 제대로지 그린두산 디기 아주리아 친녀의 지된 난주기 semjen디 편주지를 지den인데 버지당 쉔니기 지den디 아주리아 직 sustaining somewhere 다 기스 가르쳐 체득이 없디 제버디 세버스 등급에 손아용
Awesome. I feel that one of the best examples from Tibetan teachings that illustrates our relationship with the natural environment is the teachings that talk about the environment as a container and living beings as the contents of that container. So this is a kind of metaphor that I think speaks very clearly to our relationship as living beings with the world around us. It makes a very clear picture. The world is like a container and we are what is inside it. So the world is continually sustaining us, it is holding us in place, it is supporting us, and it is protecting us. So I think this metaphor of the world as container and beings as contents is a very helpful one in this way. We're continually in mutual dependence upon each other.
다나 신기 아주 주기 semjen서 남편주인비냐 직le 직대인인데 버지 그런 아주 사회에서 아주 견배그 나 아주 남규지 배주 당 대학이 지 가르쳐 프로젝트 somewhere 망고치 가시지 이 송갱 미드서 아주 미지나로라 동료야 말에 고주 민군요야 말에 아주 멋진겨 말에 예미는 고주기다 가르쳐지 슈겐스나 장도 야나 고주기 딱 가르쳐지 바 뉴버르디 펜토르디 아주리아 레디어레 근데 미균선을 되네 뭐다 유네 아주 저불링바 남편수 탐지 질직 직대선나다도 질직 대바용 되게 옆지 딘 대바용아디 드가스 가슈에지 드시 겹대버 समा이 수수 미지나로 니머리 미지나로 당 에너지 까마르지 추주르지 디나로야 뭐스 대바용 되게 옆지 대am 지 가슈에 emotional level스나다도 다나 신기 초왕을 나로래 대바 차되게 옆지 차디
So not only are the sentient beings and the world, that is their environment, in a continual interdependent relationship with each other, but the sentient beings themselves relate to each other in an interdependent way. All of the food that we eat, all of the clothes that we wear, all of the products that we enjoy come about due to our interdependent relationship with other sentient beings. We may not know who the people are who work in the factories that make the things we use. We may never have heard their names, but they and their actions have a strong impact on our lives. And they benefit us very directly. So in these indirect and direct ways, we are in constant interdependent relationship with others. We are constantly connected to others. And so it's important to have an understanding of this, not just as an intellectual understanding, but in a way that we try to bring this appreciation into every minute, every hour, every day of our lives. So we can try to appreciate this more on an emotional level, and other levels that we can bring directly to bear in our experience.
ane ti gyunsan dene chile chiden zhaw yebe yinzan ti gyunsan dene nga da shen sa nga sa de nga namgyu nga zegi conceptual thought samar ba ji namdon ru ji dondor ru chen ju sa nga sa de tisre rangwa wa ji tsuk ban de ji samro dang ga ara de ngoy ni chu thale ya nga sa de 간다 셴매바라 나사지 라완다 속도를 내줘야지 그라 합시다르시 드리비 군산데네 나사디야 아니지 셴라 떼대버지 소식 아이덴티티는 미신다 떼대버지 소소 초아이나 미신다 떼대버지 드린두산에 디군산데네 아니 핀주 제상 아주기 넘규 나다 켜서야돼 다른 부르지 nga se duzane ane ji sotobre bchigdang xian se duzan sotobre bge yebchi dine dini pada jangta chimbu yebchi dine samtang ga arde tenda malaya ane ji dine jangta meba zongdo ma sebe pejir nga sa di xian gi chaxian rubji la xian sa de rang ge chaxian rubji dine ji chona rubji
Therefore, since we are always in mutual interdependent relationship, we can see clearly that these labels of I versus other are just conceptual fabrications. They're just projections of our mind. We usually think of myself and me as something that is independent and that can stand on its own. But in true reality, there is no I or me without others. This I or me cannot stand on its own without the support of others. Our own identity depends on others. Our own feeling also depends on other people. Furthermore, we usually have an assumption that there is a great distance between these two things called me and you. But in reality, there is no distance between these concepts of me and you. In true reality, the concept of me is a part of others. And similarly, the concept of others is actually a part of ourselves.
이나 ngazugi pena ngadi sad pena nangbe dangme ko shiyar chulu kaji dangme ko shiyar so who are you sar jual len da di ngadi kwando ngadi ina del jijena harso misangwal the interest ka yo mare ngarai ne samsam di ke jual ya di da di dis kala khabrsto was me da ngadi kwando ngadi ngai chensin de bitsegoda ina 되게 대단 아주 되는 시야디 되는 philosophy 되는 게 좀 많이 비쳐. 제가 대단 아주 시야디 나도 큐리아 아주 사바는 신기 장다지 매비 인자 텔레데니 계속 개치슈디 가르쳐야 되었으나 얘기 전이기 디두대양 미신다기 디두 차대야 지금 미신다기 디두대양 에너지 ngara rengi di dul de string di gunzel de ne azu tinde ge ji randa shen sa ge ji da more in a sort of casualty day-to-day life somewhere de ji choangwe ge na lo nyamle chi dang ko she de ma de yang di ji dang me di nga de chue sa ju di ge ji ji xian
la so. But I want to be clear that where I'm going with this talk about the lack of distance between self and other is not in the philosophical direction of Buddhist teachings on personal selflessness, for example. You can really go in that direction intensely if you want to, and get into all kinds of analysis about who am I, where is the self in the body and the mind, and so forth. But My emphasis on this talk about lack of separation between self and other isn't really about that type of philosophical analysis. I myself have difficulties in answering these philosophical questions sometimes, like, who am I? What is the self? And so forth. So philosophy is not my main point here. My main point is that we can actually feel and experience this lack of separation between ourselves and others in our day-to-day life. So when I say that there's really, truly no distance between ourselves and others, I'm speaking from the perspective that we can actually recognize that our own experience of happiness and suffering is the same as the experience of happiness and suffering that is felt by others. And the happiness and suffering that is experienced by others can also be experienced by ourselves. We share this common ground of experience in terms of our own happiness and suffering. And that's something we can actually see and feel in a practical way in our day-to-day lives.
California, Missouri, citizen, choose the Dangwa Chevdi. The Kasa Gage get Dangwa Chibo Choyamane. The California citizen Jiggy Dangwa Choyamane. That the Jigana. Choice Chevdi. America Yongi Dangwa of Jidang. Yana Zumbling be Yongi Dangwa of Jig Chandu. Dangwa Chasig is something to the Industane. The impact somewhere. The Kashre Penangazu Dea, the Chu Gange, the Mongolia on the art, the Industry, the Gunzetin, with the Chu Talia, Peugeot Dongdang, the Zugun was choice somewhere. Dangwachedan Digi, Shugi, Energy Kashre Mimangujidang, and then the Yachambujilia, Shugan Ter, to show you in Industry, the Gunzel Dene. And also Tindrig that Java Yavadi, Tindrig Javadi, Chilchiding and Java Sanadrandu, Randa Sheng and Javadi, Soang Narolia. In this secular level, somewhere, energy, Soang level Tolia, he was on the Achim in Dusane, that telling us awareness grade.
For example, we could consider ourselves a citizen of California making a choice about the life that we live in California. But the choice about the life that we live in California really isn't the choice of one individual. It's actually a choice for all of America, and in some ways a choice for the whole world. For example, in the context of the water difficulties that the state of California is experiencing, there could be one individual in California who makes choices about how to use their water, but this choice has a great impact on not only the state of California, but broader ripple effects on the entire world. So this is an example of how we are in continuous relationship with each other, and we're really not all that far apart from each other. So this mutual dependence can be an awareness that's cultivated as really a secular form of knowledge.
That really Gunsel Dene, and Azuji, responsibilities at him. Azuchi Chiden in Beinsa. Susuki Didolian Genki, we have a Nasingi, energy, the dig Chile Chidengi. Carver, interdependent Carver, the Ginkurk Samlo Deep, the Leon Garden. Uniting Ginkurk Samlo Deep, that energy, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, some of it. That is Jiggy. The church or the chemachor is at Yandi Gingur, Tindemaimba. I want to do some of that. This Chak Gobasat today, Gene, and the Chan Debatang, Chan Mindubasaj, and the Susu Ngene, Mebatang, Tanlangaton, Tindij Shumina, Tindij getting encouragement, Sadi. Kashre encouragement go at.
That's all.
And a Kashre Ginkurti Ningdop than they begin Kurjidang. Tanglang that they begin Kurjguad, Cash Shadi. Then they begin and Tanglang Kashre Ningdop of the Yanam Judis gear, Ningdop de and a Niji Zawaruchi. 니지 사야데 닝도 매베 니지 이비나 안 버지 가서 니지 딱 뉴디에르 차도 아마들이 인두산티 유저된데
So with this heightened awareness of interdependence comes a heightened sense of responsibility. Just as we accept responsibility for our own experiences of happiness and suffering, we can broaden that sense of responsibility in light of the reality of interdependence and how our actions impact the world. So this sense of responsibility isn't a heavy or imposed sense of responsibility. It doesn't say, you should do this or you should do that, you need to do this or you need to do that. It's an inspired sense of responsibility that naturally has the sentiment of, I want to do this. I want to make this change. So this type of natural inspiration and feeling self-encouraged and having a sense of steadfastness or power of the heart is very important. This power of the heart or strength of heart is the essential root of compassion. Compassion without strength of heart isn't a powerful form of compassion. So having some type of natural inspiration for this responsibility that we are cultivating is very important.
링주산에 인지사 대한 인지대야 아주 남게 있어야들이야 인지리야 너무 서로 식다 간다. 또 남주 아주 인중사시고 다 인중사디 링주산 인지사디 가능도人일 거인의 인중 같이 심지는 거인의 인지사 기르시야래. 간다에다 인중사네야 지지는 인중사 디 시주산에 딱 간다 랑을 미비 인지르지. 랑리아 즉 가서 caring 자직당人이 가림 가서에 내당디 하고 자직당 다는 신기 아니 가서에 랑리아 encouragement somewhere人이리아 닝도당 다는 신기 awareness delivery자디 energy 가서 랑을 미비 니지 서럽시 아니 드네 아니 셴리아 인자오 자지等于就是他第一句在那呢，新来年早的没生年了呀，让你啊人多吧，女不的公平当官的，现在呀人在上班也给当啊早晚都去，这个没得说。
And this compassion, this inspired compassion, needs to be directed to ourselves in the beginning as the first step. In traditional Buddhist teachings, they talk about what has often been translated into English as renunciation, can also be translated as a determination to be free. They talk about that as the first stage in spiritual training, and then after that comes the training in compassion. What renunciation or the determination to be free really is compassion that is directed towards oneself. And then that same sentiment or feeling directed outward to others is what we call compassion proper. But in any case, it needs to begin with an attitude of loving kindness toward oneself and a willingness to take care of oneself and more deeply understand the situation that oneself is in. With this, we can encourage ourselves, develop more inspiration and strength of heart, and more awareness that we can then extend to others very naturally, embodying true, fully qualified, genuine compassion. So this loving heart directed towards oneself is the first step, and without that, our compassion directed toward others won't be fully genuine. So in order to have genuine compassion toward others, we have to have care and love for ourselves.
미망우지기 compassion 거와디 미망부지 신경하다 이네 compassion is that 니지 컨디스 샤워스 컨디스 샤워스 미망부지기 exaggerated somewhat that 가르치는 지 첨부를지 지 선규난 된거야지 headline를 제제 다지 가르쳐비네 가시는 양알 남년들의 종류 땅아 현래야 편도체고도 근데 인자 대지 규첨부지 차고도 사람보다 왕제 첨부지 차고도 사람이지 근데现在좀 못 쳐서 다 이비냥 아주 지 가수의 compassionate genku야 action 차들이 인지미지들이 exaggerated somewhat 첨부를 제거하면 봐 아주 니머지기 너무 소화섬을 지당기 소화 계단 나로 텔레딘 소화 계단을 댄시네 아니 현리야 가수의 지 가수다지 현편 주야당 다나 현리야 아니 지 인지 삼바키제 아니 차와주야 룽아이 송 배바차디 아주 이 가수의 딱한다 인지 액션 기 난기 딱 콤바 탐부세는 자도 야나 시제기 가수의 activity somewhere that the chadi hours in Dustante catch shais or something.
The fact that compassion is important is well known by almost everyone. But there's a question about how do we do compassion? A lot of people have exaggerated ideas about what compassion should look like. They think that any true compassionate activity must be able to grab headlines somewhere. Also, many people have come to me saying, I really want to benefit others, but in order to do that, I would have to become rich. Or, I really want to help others, but to do that, I would have to gain a lot of power. The true compassion, however, I think, is something that doesn't involve those kinds of requirements. Being truly compassionate and responsible means just working with our day-to-day experiences in a skillful way. Every single day-to-day normal experience and normal feeling that we have can be a stepping stone for compassion. We can use all of these normal daily experiences as a basis of benefiting others, physically, verbally, and mentally. So, taking this very pragmatic and ordinary approach to compassion is the first step in our training and the foundation of all of our other further developments. And I think it's important to understand this.
아들이 두산에 너나 나중에 가수에다지 compassion 사대야 초신이 melham도지. 드레이 두산에 아주 melham 사디 삼삼 아주 남기 가르쳐서나 melham 사디 에네 다 제tum나 액션 지어레스 대 제모tum나 아니 make aspirations out. 다 이미네 compassion 디 가르치 디 케이스 가르쳐서나 action 다 aspiration 냠도여야 되지.
맞아?
게야고 aspiration 지. 아주 aspiration 디 삼삼 아주 가르쳐서나 bodhisattvas 가르쳐 전주서 뭐 this aspirations is 그 aspiration 디 almost beyond reality somewhere 다지 드니 두산 디 균세는 때네 aspiration 디 야침부시지에 인상 facing any challenges somewhere 다지 강에 가르치 채비 미냐 디기 텔레 게체로 돼야지 그래서 아주 여기 compassionate 디 가수에 다지 명람디 가지지 채예비냐 디기 슈기 아주 여기다 액션 디 아니냐 디기 균투체 균투 continuation somewhere 용투야지 당디 뉴버디 못투이는 저투야지리야 and aspiration 디 쇼르 겨야지 데네 인두사 aspiration 다 and the action somewhere 니가로 냠돈 줘야지 마더베 다디 인두사 디 균센데네 and compassion is that 초진 액션 차되게 여지 chosen aspiration 차되게 이제 전화 연대 보스.
사람들이
네가 냠도 연대 왜 전화.
라서. From one perspective, you could say that compassion is an aspiration, because compassion is the wish for us to help sentient beings become free of suffering. But from another perspective, you can say that compassion is an action. Really, we need to bring our actions and our aspirations together as the main way that we travel the path of compassion. Whatever we can do, we should do that. That becomes part of our compassionate activity. Whatever we can't do, we can make aspirations. And that's our compassionate heart expressing itself as well. So the bodhisattvas, the great heroes and heroines of the Buddhist tradition, courageous beings, are well known for their vast and profound aspirations to be of assistance to living beings. The aspirations of bodhisattvas are famous for being extremely extensive, almost beyond realities that we could conceive. The bodhisattvas aspire to be able to face any challenges that come their way and transcend all of those challenges in their quest to be of benefit to sentient beings and benefit to the world. So these aspirations are very important because they are like the fuel that makes the continuous thread between our individual tangible actions. So the aspirations alone, of course, aren't enough. We need actions to support our aspirations and to give our aspirations an expression. But at the same time, our aspirations link our actions together and provide for continuity. So in this way, we should always try to bring our aspirations and actions together on our path. One side of compassion is our aspiration. The other side is our actions.
나 내림 시면로 제 좋아하시왜
라운 요리.
대인주스 다 디젤이야 다 뒤주의 같이 루고 시라는 거좀 세상 좋아하시 시라미는 야구만도 섬증은
라서
대인주스 안에 계시야도 빠지 되게 참참 증면도 섬
라서 대인주와는 좀 일롱나.
Okay.
So I think that's about all that I should say in terms of the lecture component of this evening's event. There have been some questions submitted in advance to me, so I think that it would be good to take the time remaining to for us to hear some of those questions. I'm not quite clear on when the evening's events should come to a close, so I'll just take a few minutes now to hear some of the questions that have been posed and perhaps make a few comments in response to those. And then we'll see where we end up in terms of time.
Really? Okay. Question.
So the translator will read the questions that have been pre-submitted. This question comes from a student group working on environmental issues.
Yeah.
How can people of different religious traditions work together to support environmental change and protection?
Environmental issues beyond political, beyond religion, 다간다 아주 상월로 주로 이내라 강가로 상월 니간 점링기 고란디 간에 손에 제 고유의 인상 디균셀 때네 아술이야 마튜마 망보여라디 다 이내야 세 고란디는 아주 상월로 마튜는 균접지로 라 아주 디스 마튜마 망보여라 베네 주로 베네 첩시 토하네 아술 다와 마튜마 주로 토하네 더 주미디마 나서를 지원디야데 이메네야 세 콜란 디팅에 손에 채고하더라 마튜바 매브 아주 상으로 세 콜란 디간이야 손에 채고야래 예비 균셀 때네 진짜기 가수래지 아주 가수다지 common sense 뭐래 다들 가수래 창매기 냠도 지 균초언로디 아주 심제 남주에 지 봐주 제바치아당 다나 신기 대양 가수회지 지당 아주 출루 망부치가 나로래야 지 가수 런중쿠류단 제바치아당 델리아 숨겹치다는 제베기 랍체 망부치 용디야래 이나티 랍체 디기디 상물로 미지 나로래 수수 미지 나로래야 컨디스 냠네 체고여바당 다가나 신기 대기 아니 저블링기 구육 숨겹치아 털리비나 펜도 컨디지 용토에 디지 털리비나 아주 가수라다지 룰링로 망치 충분히나 야부시다요 something 좀
Yes, sir. I think the environment is definitely an issue that transcends politics. Sometimes we try to reduce the environment to being a political issue, but actually there's many more components to the environment than just being a political issue. So there are many avenues of disagreement and dissimilarity in the world that we could identify, but more powerful than all of those is the similarity, the commonality that we all share, primarily that we are all residents of the same planet. We all share the same home. We all undergo the same joys and sorrows on this home that is the earth. So since we're all connected in that way, there's definitely opportunities for us to share our understanding, to share information about the environment, to share methods of protecting the environment, and to keep each other informed and discuss with each other how we might best go about protecting the environment in our day-to-day lives. So I think it's important for us to discuss this and share with each other how we can bring protecting the environment into our day-to-day lives, and what avenues of protecting the environment will be the most beneficial. I think it's definitely possible for us to find a common ground so that these discussions can take place. The next question is, so many problems come from competitiveness. We seem to be constantly comparing what we have to others and judge our own worth through those comparisons. How can we learn to stop measuring ourselves against others? What are the practical steps to do that?
Measuring.
Lare.
Oh. Tadi jindur jadi. Tadi jindur jadi. Kasurada. 다 harus lah. Tadi jindur jadi kau dia mise. Kasue. 아주 남균에 진dur 체두산에 그뒤에 지 more 그뒤에 젠더 치서로데 more high level somewhere 지 강리아 젠더 차마도베 마 월이야 두리아르데 시다 용문도 다지 지 가르스베다 지 드린두산 디균셀데네 두르두산에 아니 마신에다 tin상 기주들이야 아니 지 가르스베 consumerism sanadado yamaraji tapen news re dana singi ji tv re kanji thone bine mangboji karso ngasulia ta chapja mangboji advertisement mangboji yondi gare de di gyunzen le dene ani karso da ji kyora diriji gore spena keba ina diriji gore pumein diriji gore sarbuji ta diriji yondi a ji de mo jungbu ina ani kyora be chini ma sang ro 근데 망고 저한테 윈도우스안에 아주 샘디 쉽지기 가서 disturb somewhere disturb 산안다도 야면은 지치기 가서 지조기 다가르에 스웨샤베기 reality somewhere 디기 가서에 아주리아 슈겐시 버시비텐 또 용디가 어디 윈도우스안에 다 개치슈디 가서에 아주 수수응외네 사물 하고 싶다한테 오늘 전에 수술이야 not just we want so ngazulia deba jibo mai unetani gaba karimba tang dana singi unetani meaningful karimba that is some shibar tangchi and susugi karshwe rawang gonesana rado susu da sambe duram saadi keshimshima something
Lassa? Our attitude of competitiveness is mostly directed towards people who we perceive to be in a better situation than ourselves or in some type of higher situation than ourselves. And this type of way of thinking is actually encouraged by the mentality of consumerism and actually by a lot of marketing that we see through television and other forms of media. There are many advertisements that essentially try to convince us that we aren't enough as we are now, that we don't have what we need already, and that if you're a man, you should have this, this, and this, and if you're a woman, you should have this, this, and this, and so forth. When we buy into that narrative that is being sold to us, our minds become disturbed, and we start believing the stories that are told to us by certain elements of society rather than trusting our own heart or trusting our own intelligence. So I think the most important thing in terms of transcending a competitive mentality is to not just think about what you want, but to think about what you really need, and to think about what is really meaningful for yourself. And when we approach things that way, I think this will help us to gain a greater sense of autonomy within ourselves. The next question is, does Your Holiness see habits in our society that lead us to decrease our natural capacity for empathy? What are the obstacles to our natural capacity for empathy that we should be most aware of? Tani nga su chichok nangdu tani empathy nyungru tangyaki ken sigiyubes chichoki tani empathy ki parche shukche shuk karire.
Oh, wow. Empathy parche shukche shuk. Namgyun tadi re kasura ji dengzin sad the dengzin sad selfishness somewhere selfish da jinjin da jinjin sad namgyun ne ngaso ji kasura mangboji ji kasura ben nubjo na lo da di yong de di self some defense some so sungyob cha dan den gare di an dana singi ta mangboji shedi yare teni dusane di gyunzel dene di jikchana nyanga chasif kasura ta di self defense check already yimine ta di self defense de tes kasura ji da jinjin de ji tes tal lungar ji tes ji kasura the too much samar bata the chane kanda self defense de jikchana ngaran sugi zhongkang de cha mi sibe ma zhongkang gi dus na defense cha be cha rawa go ro cha rawa sunggyup cha che do
Lassa?
cha ge rawa ma bu chi ko de ba defense cha che che za cha rawa ma bu chi ko che energy dana sing azu self defense de che da ma she bi na and the cha rawa ne shi che che so so di na ba chu and the so dan de ba ye be minyu she ji samaro da ji better so pama bi je de ngwa she ba minyu she ji tu ya ye ba che shen da de outside world de ba be che che de ji yong de shi tuen dam do ni ja cha wa na lu sha
Lassa?
the user di gyunse de na compassionate sadi jidang su sunggyub chega bi mine tiang su gi kasue tende ta kasue chelen debam yamana 지 가르쳐 ngui ni su mayin be den de ngan jing ja cha de pa dor ji di chi lo ba duen chen an nga zu ji ngui ni su zhen bu ling de kan de xin ba ji da tie da nga zu bo ru je ba kan de cha de ye de ya bu shi tong tu ya she do di gi ja cha de pa do gua chi yo den ju sa di jun zhen de de ji nga zu nu shuo xie de ya sub difference ya dang da na xin gi ka shu da ji rang ren yi sung ju cha dang rani keben sung ju cha dang da na da rang wang ka ju mi ger ge rang wang mang bu xia de chi da ma xin de nyang ga men song
La sa?
da kan da ding ye ji nga da zhe ba ge che ge men du san ba zhe ji da ya na da nga le nyang ga yong sa re song sa ro ji de ji ge ton en empathy za de xia ra mi yong ya ru ji nyong ru da ru ji da de yong de men song
La sa?
da rang da ngo xi ba ka xi ji le empathy sa ji yong che da yi me de chu ri jing empathy ro
La re?
da chu ri ma yin ba de yong de ka la ka bu shi men
La sa? I think in general, the tendency towards selfishness can be an obstacle towards generating empathy. And of course, one can see that there's certain elements of Western society that might be a little bit more conducive to selfishness, perhaps, than other parts of the world. Of course, some elements of self-action, self-defense, and self-worth definitely are necessary. But if we take concepts of things such as self-defense or individual liberty to an extreme, then they could become dangerous. And maybe this concept of self-defense can actually be a prison. It can actually become like a prison that we lock ourselves inside of. So instead of actually skillfully defending ourselves, what sometimes happens due to our tendencies of self-centered thinking is that we put ourselves inside this prison with many iron walls surrounding us, and we only let a few people inside, maybe our parents and our closest friends, but everyone else we put on the other side of this hard and impenetrable and opaque wall that we can't see through. That's not obviously a skillful way of being in the world, because it doesn't allow for us to open up to any connection to others. It would be very difficult to develop genuine empathy and compassion in a situation like that. So some level of awareness of self-defense is required, and appreciation and enjoyment of individual liberty is also important. But in general, when we talk about training in compassion, what we're talking about is knocking down these walls of the prison, so that we can actually go out into the world, see the reality that others are experiencing, and make direct connections with them. That will be beneficial to ourselves and beneficial for others. And sometimes when we get too invested in these concepts of self-defense or looking out for number one or individual liberty and other ways of self-centered thinking, this can harm our development of empathy. Maybe we could have some feelings of warmth toward one or two people or those who are very closest to us, but that would be a biased form of empathy, and it would be difficult to develop genuine or expansive empathy in that context. The next question is, usually when I hear about interdependence, the focus seems to be mostly on physical things. Are we also emotionally interdependent on each other as well? Can Your Holiness talk about how interdependence works inside ourselves?
Inside.
Nangla, sosu nangla. Ne tugun la, ngaso chik la chik ten dikyo re ne. Ngaso gi chorwa tenso yang, chornang tenso yang, ten diki rang shin rebes. Tene nang.
I don't know how to say that.
Aha. Nangi chornang tenso yang, ten diki rang shin le megi yorbe.
Nangi chornang, ten diki rang shin.
Mi shenda ki chorwa da ngarangi chorwa. De ten diki.
I don't know how to say that.
Tinga so nangi ne dangdi tendrigi rangshin bakandris.
nangi nedas dusane 지당기 인터디벤스 하데 에네 그 가르지 초낭 토리 미니 지 미장나로 베나 김사지 나로래야 에너지 베나 파마드 데스 아그레시브 더지 야바단 다나지 콘도사브르 디제비나 퍼지 디제지 야 김산텔레 러신기 고랑 슈겐 태아지당 에네 부두디즈네 디 살롱 요하다 쿠즈 셈캄기 가르지 헬스 스머리 대상 샘기 대상 되게 된데 지 가르에 휴겐 태안으로지 요거 매도 something dos
Lasso.
예 시간 니가
Lasso. I'm not sure if I have
I'm not a good doctor.
Lasso.
Doctor?
No.
Oh. Okay. 개왕이 아버지 램드스.
Lasso.
개왕 세다 되면 램. Okay.
Lasso. It seems I'm not a fully qualified master scholar yet.
Always. Okay.
So I'm not sure if I have a perfectly precise answer to address this question, but I would say that we can see the interdependence of the emotional world within us at play in the example of the family situation. If we have a family where the parents have a very aggressive internal nature, then that's definitely going to affect the family as a whole and have a great impact on the children who are growing up in that kind of an environment. It will impact their health in various ways and impact the type of disposition that they adopt as they grow into adults. The next question says, due to the internet and other media, we get constant information about many terrible things going on around the world. Sometimes I feel helpless because I know I cannot directly fix the suffering of those people. It makes me want to just disconnect and turn away from the experiences of people who seem so far away. How can I stay open to the sufferings of people I will never meet?
Okay. 다디 가수에 다디 딘산 점물인 기소리아 information 디토네 아주 상물로 점물인 상물로 지 interdependent 임바디 clearly demonstrated somewhat whether the 세버지 된세 아주 또 충분해 안데 이주산 디균선 때네 안데 삼삼 땡땡기 가수에지 다든데 소소다 타른 부여 되베 미드줄이야 다 남주 빼는 안 잡시미나 당에 남주 지가수에 the news 말베지 좀좀 선유 망고시 다 남주네 돈하러 붙이지 다디야래 제가 안지 니주 다 좀린 가스칼이야 니주 탑겨베 니주 망고시 온디야래 다디들이야 directly 차스게요 말해 다 임비네야 kuzu chedu den directly chamebine kuzu chedu and susugi kashwe daji aspiration somewhere daji monam kya dan dana singi ene susugi kashwe daji chawa chungsaji mado mebine kuzu chedu dedication charu jigdang di chedu 안 땡땡이 가수에 다지 인지민증 아주 제아디 그뒤에 가수에 지 람상 지 도슈에 람상 지 파조될 팬 토토야로 지다 니버 첨부로 지 연구하러 시작하되 이면에 찍잖아 대 연구하면 봐 간다지 소수기 고주 체도 소수탕 하나 예스들이야 고주 체도 아주 지 제비미네 디 땡땡이 아니 슈기 고줄이야 팬도 연구되지 지당 안에 니버텐데 수치그 부지 작업면도 섬들을 챙겨뒀어.
These days, due to the
디디야 조디 미신달 되야 지보면 아주 팬도서 사데 미신달 지 되야 지 미신달 학과 지보면 rang ke system le ne ji new ba ji ya ji encouragement cha de ya ke chen bo re
Lasso. These days, due to the easy access to information that we have, the reality of interdependence is demonstrated to us even more clearly than ever before. And of course, a part of this is learning about awful things that happen in the world very shortly after they happen. So even in my own case, I'm continuously reading, watching the news, paying attention to world events, and all the time learning about tragic and sad developments. And sometimes we can feel helpless because there's nothing we can do to directly make things better for the people that are affected. But we shouldn't allow that to discourage us, because what we can do is hold those people in our heart, make aspirations for them, and dedicate even the smallest positive action that we perform to their welfare, healing, and so on. A lot of times we think that in order to respond to a tragedy, we must do something very grand or very powerful, something that can be really seen in a tangible way. But that's not needed all the time. What we can do is dedicate whatever small actions of positivity that we can perform. We can take up these people in our minds and dedicate our actions to them and hold them in our hearts and make aspirations for them. I think that if we do this, then there will definitely be some benefit and some power that arises from that. So when we hear about bad things happening in the world, we shouldn't just interpret it as a situation of information coming at us and knowledge of a bad event that we are gaining. But we can interpret it rather as further encouragement to our own heart and mind for developing positive qualities.
Thank you. Dering jusan to baje dinero jimi da dering ge sia dering jusan yang gan de pe chamro le tu chi shai karin chi shai.
So that seems to be all for this evening, and I would like to once again thank you all for coming here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We hope and trust that you have received a blessing this evening, and on behalf of His Holiness and the University of Redlands, thank you for sharing this special evening with us. So go now in peace and travel gently and with compassion on the path. Good night.